Yeah. It may come up, it may not.
Welcome to the Liberty Collaborative, where the past meets the present in the fight for freedom. We uncover the roots of liberty, spotlight the people who shaped it, and explore what it takes to preserve it today. If you're ready to think deeper, stand stronger, and act with purpose, you're in the right place. Let's reclaim what matters most.
And welcome, everybody, to the Liberty Collaborative Podcast. I am one of the hosts, Aaron Bowman. It is Thursday morning, October 30th, 2025. And as always, we're here to bring you some riveting content. And with me, as always, is Mike Hancock, K. Carl Smith, and Chris Coyle. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
And this is the eve of Halloween, October 30th. I'll be out trick-or-treating tomorrow night with my kids. I don't know if you guys will be, but we'll be out. And today's topic is the fall of liberty in NYC, how socialist promises lead to communist outcomes. And it's going to be more of a whole type of conversation, a holistic viewpoint of communism, socialism versus good old USA. If that's correct, did I have that right, fellas?
Yeah.
It's, Aaron, kicking this off and really getting in fast and deep. When you say the USA, I think what we all mean is a country unique in the history of mankind and in the world that started with the premise that all men are created equal and they have the right to the pursuit of happiness, with concepts like the consent to be governed, free capitalism, and so forth. Then you have the other, which I guess would be examples of Cuba, whereas it certainly Russia, China, Venezuela, that are run by dictators. But the dictators use this idea of collectivism, communism, as sort of this panacea, I guess, that gives them enough credibility to gain power. Because once they get it, guys, I don't really see any communism in Russia or China or Cuba. It's basically klepto governments that run like a mob, police state, take it. So it's fascinating that we almost are on the eve of a mayor being elected in New York that puts a nice brand on it called socialism. But socialism, K. Carl, Michael, Aaron, isn't that just sort of a watered down marketing term for communism?
Yeah, it's at the very least is the pathway to it, the super highway to it.
Exactly, I call it the gateway to communism.
Yeah. And communism, guys, is for viewers or listeners, is really the piece of writing that Karl Marx wrote in England. I guess he got thrown out of Germany, didn't have a job. Which, okay, Karl, I know you're gonna light us up again. But his theory for the rise up of the proletariat, right, Michael, against the bourgeoisie, was sort of the theoretical framework on which Lenin, Stalin, these guys killed millions of people. China grabbed wealth for themselves, and versus free enterprise, which, guys, we got to admit, does have some attributes that give rise to people raising their hand, like inequality, wealth. And I'll come back to that in a little bit. So how do we get into this, though, K. Carl? Historically, this idea has been around. You told us amazing history the other day of how the communists actually targeted Martin Luther King and others, hoping that if the U.S. system wouldn't be attractive to them, communism would. I don't know if that's a great place to start, but boy, that got my attention.
Yeah, what I was referring to back in my younger days, I grew up in Alabama. And of course, the heart of the civil rights movement occurred in Alabama. So a lot of members of my church, senior members of my church, were very much involved. And they were actually my mentors. I sat down with them, talked with them. They told me a lot of things that was going on. And one thing they shared with me said, you got to understand why blacks at that time in the 1840s, 1850s, they leaned toward communism as an economic system because capitalism excluded them. And as I mentioned when we talked before, the quota system was back then not to hire a Negro. The quota system was zero. So, and communists came to the black community and said, look, we're going to help you fight racism. Well, nobody else was helping us fight. The so-called capitalist system, it was racist. So So they leaned toward communism, but found out, as Manny Johnson found out in his book, The Color, Common Sense, and Communism, that communists was using black folks as pawns in order to destroy America from the inside, black versus white, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I guess the bottom line, there's no perfect system. There's flaws in communism. Matter of fact, there's evil in communism, and there's flaws in capitalism. So that goes to show that our Constitution is so important, because in this country, our Constitution keeps that kind of crony capitalism in check, and we got to keep them and keep these capitalists or these free market entrepreneurs in check, because men and women are not angels.
Yeah, and K. Carl, I thank you so very much the other day for talking about this, because you got me started going down the path of continuing to look at how communists twist language and twist the meanings of things to distort them. So when you take a look at what Adam Smith did as one of the sort of founders of the concepts around free enterprise, it was really the communists that took that and called it capitalism, and then started to create all these negative connotations around what that is, that has nothing to do with free enterprise, right? And like any system, all systems that created by humans have some flaws, and the extent to which it goes one way or the other is going to be based upon the moral characters of the people engaged in it. And so I think the communists actually exploited that, and actually did more once in America to create a level of tension that actually would even turn more Americans, in particular Black people, against the government of the United States.
You know, in the book by Manning Johnson, Color, Communism, and Common Sense, and to dive into your point, he mentioned that the word Uncle Tom was created by communists. Yeah. And it was created by communists to make sure any Black person that disagreed with what communism was all about, what they're doing, and their agenda they espouse, that they did not gain any credibility in the Black community. So it was actually the communists who gave the Uncle Tom name a negative connotation.
Right. They practice tagging something, right, and then making you look bad by calling you that thing that you actually are not.
So I would say they're still doing that today. To some
extent. My goodness, yes.
If you're a conservative, you're now a racist. If you like Trump, you're now a MAGA extremist, even if you don't agree with everything he says. I think the left has been very good at like you said, Mike, labeling people.
Yeah.
For sure.
When you don't have the facts, you go to the narrative.
That's it. Yep.
You know, Nassim Taleb wrote a famous book way back in the day. He was a guy at Quant on Wall Street. He wrote The Black Swan. And his other book, which I'd really recommend, is Skin in the Game. It's how politics really, and politicians have in many cases no skin in the game, but make amazing decisions. But what he talked about was the power of the narrative, that people actually emotionally more moved by a story than by the facts. And so portraying, which I want to come back to something of what is it, what substantive rationale would people have for saying, well, this communism thing sounds good. And so one of the things I question is whether there's a generation that has been raised in a level of wealth where they don't see how food is delivered or processed or produced. They don't get their hands dirty. They go to a health club. They're on their electronic devices. And they sort of, like Mondami himself, went to Bowdoin, a liberal arts school in Maine, with very liberal parents. And so their reference for what it takes to work, to raise a family is unrealistic, perhaps. But you look at this idea that somehow someone else will do the hard work, take the risks, build businesses, employ people. And when they reach a level of success, it's the collective right to take that and redistribute it to people who don't do it. I mean, guys, what is the core here that's building? You've seen the polls there are younger people who think socialism's okay.
Well, Chris, to that, I think the issue is it's not a grassroots movement, what we're seeing in New York. There's been a lot of reports and investigation into all the funding that's coming in for Zohran. So he's got, he calls himself the Democratic Socialist. And we're going to play a clip here that was from an interview in 2021, I believe, where he takes key points right out of the Communist Manifesto. And when you start looking at who's backing him, there are a lot of communist organizations, Soros, groups like that are funneling all this money into his campaign. And so it's not a grassroots movement. I think what the news is trying to portray on the nightly news about what's going on in New York, it's very well orchestrated and backed. And if we, or it's not we, but if the people of New York elect a socialist into that city, one of the largest cities, I think, right, that has them for people in such a small area, and he wants to do rate freezes or rent freezes, he wants to have free buses, government run grocery stores like that, you're going to see people mass exodus, I think, out of New York. And again, I don't think it's grassroots from what I've been seeing. It seems like there are players, that New World Order, whatever you want to call it, maybe we'll put on our conspiracy hats for a second, that are funding this and pushing this through.
Yeah, it's definitely not grassroots, and it's an effort that has been building for damn near over 100 years, right? These people are extremely well organized, and the moment that you start to really shine the light on them, they'll run back under the into the hole and regroup and come back and emerge again. That's what's been happening over and over and over again.
I don't know if it's grassroots, but that's the grass that's been growing for a long time. Communism, they've been trying to push this since the 1920s, and a lot of people being fooled. But again, guys, here's what's going on. It goes back to Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell, in his younger days, he was a devout Marxist. Yep. And he said the reason how he transformed, because he finally heard the counter message. I guarantee you those people in New York, because it's not being taught in our education system in our colleges, they've never heard the counter message of liberty through the lens of Frederick Douglass, which is the answer to destroy all the claims of Marxism. Yeah. So the best way to defeat Marxism is Frederick Douglassism, and I'm gonna give a selfish plug. You gotta get this. Get this book. My image is bad here, but you gotta get this book here. Got a book. Go to my. I don't know. I can't get the focus here, but anyway.
What's it called, K. Carl?
Just finished writing the book. It's called Douglass versus Marx, and what that's all about. It is a fictional story based on logic and truth, but it's fictional in terms where, because Douglass and Karl Marx never met in real life, but in this series of 31 dialogues, Karl Marx and the Douglass are debating on various things that's really relevant for today, even back then. The importance of recognizing human rights, capitalism versus socialism, free speech. And so Douglass and Karl Marx in this book are dialoguing back and forth, debating back and forth the things that Karl Marx exposed, and Douglass cleans his clock in all the dialogues. As a matter of fact, the last dialogue is called The Reckoning, and Karl Marx had to come back to Douglass and say, you know what, Douglass, all your words been in my mind for the past several months. And you know what? I think you're right. Because all I had was theory, how to fight oppression. You had real life experiences, how to fight oppression. In your view, and that value being a former slave is extremely important. I can't trump that.
Do you have another quick dialogue to share, K. Carl? They are so good. Mike and Aaron, if you're good with it, K. Carl, just give the audience another taste of some of these dialogues on this subject. It's so good.
Let's go ahead and continue to talk. Let me go find it right quick. I don't know which one it is. There's a dialogue where Douglass and Marx are talking about communism versus it'll come to me in a minute. Let's go ahead and talk. I'm thumbing through it here.
Well,
here it is here. Liberty versus socialism is this dialogue here.
Okay.
Liberty versus socialism. And so, Mr. Marx, this is Marx talking. Mr. Douglass, you argue that freedom comes from personal effort and liberty. but socialism ensures equality by redistributing resources. Doesn't that guarantee justice for all? Douglas, Carl, equality enforced by the state is not freedom. True liberty comes from opportunities, not forced equality. I fought real slavery, the chains that bound men physically. Socialism creates an socialism creates an ideological slavery where citizens are bound by government control, not independency, not by iron and rope, but by law and coercion.
Absolutely.
That's Douglas.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the key thing, K. Carl, is that communism has these promised outcomes, equality, fairness, and shared property. When you get to free enterprise, and I'm based upon my conversation with you, I don't think I'm ever going to use the word capitalism again to refer to what we're supposed to be aiming toward here in America. But free enterprise basically has expected outcomes, not promised, right? Those outcomes being innovation, wealth creation, personal liberty, and rising standards of living. And so I think over the last 100 years, if you take a look at the progress that communists have actually made in the United States, it moved us from probably the late 1890s to early 1900s from being more on the what I would call the right side of a range from communism to free enterprise, has constantly over time moved us more toward communism than anything having to do with free enterprise. And as it moved it toward that middle or to the left end, what we've seen is increasing efforts that they have of demonizing free enterprise.
Exactly right. Exactly. So the point I want to make is, even though the dialogues are fictional, but the content of what Marx is saying is based on their writings and their speeches.
Yeah.
So it's based on truth. So the element of the logic and truth that Douglas speaks, it destroys the theories and the anti-God opinions of Karl Marx every single time.
Yeah.
Because Karl Marx's whole thing was, you pointed to it earlier, Chris, it's all about, you got to have a revolution.
Yeah.
You got to tear everything up, shred the Constitution, and start over. And Doug said, wait a minute, no, it's not necessary. Let's keep the best that we have in America and create an opportunity where we have fair play but no favor.
Yeah, and I would even say that it doesn't even talk about starting over. It just talks about destroying it all.
Destroying, that's right. And in one of his speeches, we came up with a line is, Douglas says, revolution did not give my freedom. It was the Constitution, because in the creed of the Constitution, if man lives up to the creed, guarantees me my liberty, my freedom. So Doug said, it wasn't, he said, Mr. Carl, it wasn't a revolution that granted me my freedom. It was the creed in the Constitution. And Karl Marx had no answer for that.
Yeah.
That's what we got to teach the people today.
Absolutely.
Wow.
We sure do. Just a quick thank you to the People's Lobby for reposting this stream on X. We appreciate getting the word out. And K. Carl, going back to something you said earlier, I think you're right. Students don't get taught about Douglas and his message. Don't get taught Thomas Sowell and what he had to say. And I'm 47, and I'm just getting into what Thomas had to say. And I have a quote here from that says, socialism sounds great. It always sounds great, and it probably will always continue to sound great. It's only when you go beyond the rhetoric, it starts looking at the hard facts that socialism turns out to be a big disappointment.
I mean, what's going to happen in New York? Once they start feeling the pinch and the misery of those policies he's going to put in place, you're going to have people rebel.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, didn't they recall the mayor of San Francisco?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, guys, again, these national polls that people think it's okay, when you show pictures of Cuba, and one of the benefits of Cuba, this is sort of a bad joke, but you look at some of the 1950s cars that drive around Cuba, they're collector's items until you really understand that's still what they're driving, because that's all they can get.
Mm-hmm.
And so you look at the abject poverty of Cuba, the per capita. And what, K. Carl, you mentioned the other day, it's only when communist China opened up its economy to inject a little capitalism did they start to grow. But they pretend they're communist and they're not. They're a dictatorship.
Yeah.
Same thing with Russia. I think people make more money on the black market in Russia than they do legitimately. So you look at all these worldwide examples, and Aaron, to your point, apparently all these people in New York don't seem to understand it doesn't work, you guys. It
doesn't.
The boat doesn't float.
And you know what's interesting, Chris? There's another podcaster, and I guess he lives in New York, and he goes around wearing a shirt that says "Hot Boys for Zoran" or something like that, and he has like a clipboard, and he's asking people, "Hey, did you vote for Zoran in the primary or whatever?" Yeah, okay. Are you gonna? We want you to continue your support. I would like you to sign here saying you're going to pledge your support. I just got to read you some of his policies where he wants to tax white neighborhoods or richer neighborhoods, whatever it was, higher. Or, you know, he starts going through these things and people are like, no, I'm not supporting that. And he's like, wait, but you voted for him before. You don't realize these are his policies. And it wakes people up. It really does. And that being said, let's play this clip real quick here from an interview from Zohran early on so we can hear it himself, if I can find it on my other screen here, about the line he pulls right out of the Communist Manifesto.
This is about this entire project. It's not simply to raise class consciousness, but to win socialism. And obviously raising class consciousness is a critical part of that. But making sure that we have candidates that both understand that and are willing to put that forward at every which moment that they have, at every which opportunity that they're given. We have to continue to elect more socialists, and we have to ensure that we are unapologetic about our socialism. There are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, right, or whether it's the end goal of seizing the means of production.
So that last line there, seizing the means of production. And that is straight out of the Communist Manifesto.
And you see he's using the word socialism. He's not a socialist. He's a communist.
Yeah.
He's an evil communist.
Right. Seizing the means of production. That's communism. Right.
And then it leads to fascism.
Right. And can anybody sitting here tell me where in the world ever has communism seized the means of production and actually created anything but disaster?
That's it. Straight disaster.
Communism or Marxist philosophy, which is communism, when implemented, has never uplifted the masses more so than what the free market system has.
Yes.
In communism, there are no rags to riches story. The closest form of a rag to riches story in communism, if you're part of the revolutionary team that wins, you take over and you're poor.
Yeah.
And now, and people in countries that embrace communism has trade one master for another.
Yeah.
So the question is, when you have these revolutionaries take control, who's gonna keep them in check? No one.
No one.
Everybody else is dead, right? To kill them all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody else becomes equally poor.
But you know, one of the things that I go back to is this idea of vilifying individualism and somehow saying that it is selfish and that collectivism is more fair, takes care of people. And so if you break this down for a minute and just follow what I'm saying here, you say, okay, there is income inequality in America. And say, okay, what does that mean? Well, when you look at the wealth of Bezos, or our favorite guy now, who just made news, of course, Bill Gates, or all the other hedge fund guys and entrepreneurs, and you look at these people and you look at the amount of wealth, it is so exponentially greater than, say, the medium income, that it creates a distortion of numbers, right? And so another way to look at it is you correct the data to say, well, let's take the outliers and put them aside because those have built up wealth based on the stock market and the value of their ideas like Amazon, Microsoft, NVIDIA. And you say, okay, let's just look at standard of living. A poor person in the United States, under the poverty level, has way, way, way more higher standard of living than poverty around the world.
Yep.
Mhm.
Clean water, heat. And again, you can always go on the chart. There are people that are truly in need.
Right.
And as one gets to that, you see it. But this idea of distorting the data to say, well, there's income disparity, there is. And there's always been.
And always will be.
Yeah. And so does that mean by definition then that the system that created that is flawed?
No.
On the other hand, if one were to look at the standard of living in China or Russia or Cuba, and they're all lower, but they're more equal, does that make it better? We're all equally as poor? So, where do these guys fly, by the way, for medical treatment? They sneak in the US or a Western country, right? What is powering all their technology? It was Western innovation. So the very idea, Michael, we use the word capital, just call it free commerce, where someone can take their God-given skill and brilliance and create lines of math that create a machine that produces outcomes. And today those are computers or drugs or things. These innovations fuel prosperity around the world. So I'd really ask people who think socialism, aka communism, is a good idea to really drill into that proposition.
Oh, absolutely. Where can we point to in any communist country where there's all this great innovation that has made things better for anyone? You simply can't do it. And that whole notion of disparity in wealth, that's a red herring, right? Because you have more doesn't mean that your more makes me have less. I have what I have, and I have the ability and the freedom to get more if I want to, right? So that whole disparity thing is just it doesn't even make any sense once you sit down and think about it. And to your point, you go to Cuba. Well, yeah, there's not that big of a disparity in wealth, but everybody's freaking poor.
Yeah, I gotta laugh. The people who preach this stuff, Aaron, are all eating at fancy restaurants. As John Prine said, sipping coffee and smoking big cigars. They're wealthy. Yep. They're elitist. They all have gates. They have armed guards. So what they're against is for everyone else not to have that, but they have it. AOC's flanked with bodyguards and all sorts of stuff, right? So as is this kid from Bowdoin, who's never had a real job, is apparently now ready to run one of the biggest cities in the world.
Well, Chris, he was a rap star for, a hot second. He'd have some rapping with, I think, his shirt off. Some image I'll never get out of my head.
I'm sure that got him really ready for this job.
Oh, yeah. But, you guys bring up some great points. And I really believe that at the core issue is that our country has created dependency on the government from all these different social handouts that we have. We have people up in arms about the SNAP benefits going away. It was never meant to be a form of lifestyle. It was there to help people out, to get them from point A to point B if they're having a hard time. And that came out after the Great Depression. So we've now built generations that are looking for dependency on the government instead of, like you said, Mike, hey, I might want a bigger house. So what am I going to do? Or I might want a house to begin with. I'm going to go out and work harder. I'm not going to stay at a minimum wage job. I'm going to get myself educated, use the tools that I have available to have that prosperity in that life. But unfortunately, we have a whole generation now that just wants to wait for those government handouts and expect the government to take care of them. So when somebody like Zoran comes in and says, hey, we're going to have a freeze on rent, we're going to have government grocery stores, we're going to have free buses. Of course, that sounds good.
Aaron, they're not waiting. They're demanding.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
They're activating. And what they don't, guys, you correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Bill Clinton agree with the proposition that we had to do away with welfare? And they put in work requirements.
Absolutely.
And they took people from dependency on someone else's work and taxes and fixed it. So there's a long history of Democrats joining Republicans and saying we've got to have a society that helps people but doesn't give incentive never to work, incentive not to educate. And so what I can't believe, guys, is all that recent history is forgotten. It's ignored.
Well, that's the thing about it. If you don't know the truth, you can't recognize a lie. So a lot of people can't recognize a lie of communism.
There you go.
And so they don't know the truth because they never heard the counter message of liberty, especially through the lens of Frederick Douglass. Because think about it. How can you win an argument? Well, you can't win an argument with a runaway slave about his admiration for the founding fathers, about liberty comes with responsibility.
Yep.
And Douglas' philosophy on that. You can't argue that. So guess what? They don't teach it. You don't know it. And so when socialist comes along or Marxist comes along and espousing things that we're going to be fair, we're going to have equality, we're going to sing Kumbaya, and people go for it because they never heard the counter mess and never felt it, never experienced it.
Never felt it. And then on top of that, K. Carl, they're burning down statues of Frederick Douglass and all the people, the founding fathers, right? They demonize that. And that's the thing that, I observed throughout history when Adam Smith did his work that dealt with creating a system of natural liberty, right? They took it and turned it into capitalism and this evil thing that people should reject. And then you get to the Declaration of Independence, and all of a sudden you have Thomas Jefferson in that document chastising the King George about his engagement in slavery, and also King George's hypocrisy, and now paying the very people that he enslaved to turn against those fighting for their independence. So that's communism in the way that it always twists everything around and turns people against those things that are actually being done or advocated that would be in their best interest. They're experts in it.
Yeah, that is a great point, Mike. I hope people that are watching online, we've got 14 people watching on X. I hope we're really bringing some context for you. That's what we try to do here. And if you do have any questions, feel free to drop those in the comment section on X. I am following that on another screen over here as we're discussing this. And this is, I feel, gentlemen, a real conversation we have to have, because if we see Zohran get elected to become the governor of NYC, that I have a feeling that it's going to start spreading. And as you heard in that video, he says we need to elect more socialists into office. And I really believe that the American people have to wake up and get their heads out of their phones, so to speak, and pay attention to what's going on around them.
Start spreading.
I'm going to have to jump, but I'll leave you with this. Okay, Carl, my favorite Frederick Douglass essay is The Working Man. I think everybody ought to read that, what he describes about work and what work means to a human being, and the story when he made his first money and got to keep it, just the spiritual importance of self manifestation by working, applying yourself. So beyond, all this theory, the basic human being needs to grow, to manifest. It's been written about through history. So I'd leave you with that regardless of what people say, human beings need to thrive. And part of that is spiritual, part of it is physical, but this idea of using your brain and your skills to create something of value that you can trade with others for value is a fundamental concept. One caveman made a spear, and the other one figured out these two rocks made a spark that could make fire, and they traded. That's capitalism.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you.
Free enterprise.
And that's free enterprise. And that's a good spot to leave here, fellas. We are at the 34-minute mark. So I'll leave it up for any type of closing comments, and then we'll finish it out.
Well, all I would say is that K. Carl, he's doing absolutely excellent work with Frederick Douglass in the new book. I think I'm anxious to grab it and begin to share it with everybody that I know. I think digging into Adam Smith and what he defined as a system of natural liberty, something that's based upon freedom and a freedom governed by justice, right? Well, what we see is that the communists will take justice, the whole concept of justice, and twist it on its head, call it social justice, and then create no justice for anybody, right? So I think getting into the Declaration of Independence and understanding the history behind how that came to be and what was actually in the first draft. I had one friend say that, oh, gee, I got to the portion where it said all men are created equal and equal, and it obviously didn't apply to me. But if you understand the history, you'll understand that it actually was meant to apply to all human beings. So anyway, upon that, I'd say again, get K. Carl's book.
You're muted, K. Carl.
Okay, let me just say this. There's 31 dialogues in the book. After each dialogue, there's a reflection, a moral of the story, talking points, and discussion questions. So let me just share one of the reflections with you. This reflection comes after the dialogue entitled God-Given Liberty versus State Control. And the reflection goes this way. It says, liberty is the foundation of all human dignity. Without it, society may offer safety or equality, but it offers nothing worth living for. Tyranny wears many faces, sometimes cruel, sometimes well-intentioned. The true measure of a society is whether it allows individuals to act, speak, and reason freely. That's Frederick Douglass. Amen. Share that with people, they'll wake up. But you got to become a message of liberty and let Douglass help you articulate the importance of liberty by getting to his writings, get to his speeches, and get K. Carl's book on Douglass.
So that being said, I'm gonna have my own little plug here for K. Carl. Is this gonna be ready for the Christmas season that's coming up, the holiday season? Are people gonna be able to order this?
Matter of fact, you can order the book now. We're doing pre-orders right now. The book we'll ship them out be 1 December. And then this is the hard copy of the book, hardcover. And then next week, we'll have the ebook ready next week. And
so where can you go to pre-order?
Go to, I give it to you, Aaron. You can post it on the people can get it.
Yeah, I'll put it.
I'll send it to you. Cause I can't recall. It's a little long. It's a store email website.
Yes, I had it up on my web browser. I'm looking to see if it's here. I don't think I have that tab up still. And now, K. Carl, since Dan Bongino isn't doing his podcast anymore, if people use the code Bongino, do they get a discount?
Bongino.
Every podcast, use code Bongino. Get 10%. It's fine.
Hey, let me give you the website for the store. It's FDR Store. F is in Frank, D is in Delta, R is in Romeo. FDRstore.company.site. Maybe one more time. FDRstore.company.site. And that's our online store. You hit that and you can see the print material that's out there. You can pre-order the book as well as T-shirts and other things like that.
Great.
So it's right there, folks. If you want to go check it out, you can go right there at the FDRstore.company.site. Look at how quick I was with that, huh? Pretty good.
Appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, thank you. As always, thank you for joining us on the Liberty Collaborative podcast. And remember to
stay woke.
We'll see you on the next episode.
I sound like Mike.
Thanks for joining us on the Liberty Collaborative. If today's episode lit a fire or gave you clarity, share it and be part of the movement. Subscribe, leave a review, and keep the conversation going. Until next time, stand firm, stay